Hello and welcome to this beginner's guide on using materials in V-Ray for Cinema 4D. V-Ray materials in Cinema 4D are available as classic materials using the well-known material editor and are also well integrated into the new node system. We'll explore how to make common materials like glass, metal, plastic, and so on. We'll also explore hundreds of ready-to-use materials found in the Cosmos browser. Let's begin by docking the node editor to the right of the viewport since the scene uses a total aspect ratio, and start an interactive render. This way we can keep the rendering window on the left while we work on our shaders on the right. Immediately, you'll see that our scene is nearly fully shaded. The objects that are just plain gray are the ones we're going to set up simple materials for. Let's make a V-Ray node material. And if you can't see your node editor, just double-click on the material preview and it will pop up. The V-Ray material lets us create a variety of surface appearances, like plastics, metals, fabrics, and glass. Let's begin with our teacup and create a simple glass for it. I'll be sure to name the materials to keep everything tidy. We can pick any visible objects right from the VFB with a simple right-click. That's really useful when we have a long object list and complicated hierarchies. I can apply the material using the Apply button, or just by dragging it onto the object in the Object Manager. Glass is transparent, so we don't need any information from the diffuse layer, which means I can set it to pure black. This change isn't needed if you're planning to have the refraction color set to pure white or 100%. Now let's move to the reflections. Let's set their color to pure white, which will make them fully visible, and proceed to the refraction layer. As we increase the refraction color to white, we notice the surface of the glass becoming increasingly transparent. If we want a frosted glass look, we can decrease the glossiness value, which will make the glass appear blurrier. We can also tint the glass and give it a different appearance by changing the fog color in the translucency rollout. If you want to decrease or increase the color intensity, play around with the depth value. Let's now return the tint on our glass to its original setting. Keep watching to the end where I'll show you how the original golden stripes on the glass were created. Now let's move on and check out our first metal material. Let's create a new V-Ray node material and start building it from scratch. Metals are usually very reflective and rely more on their reflection setup for their overall look. So let's set our diffuse color to black and see why reflections are so important for a metal material. Activate the layer by turning our reflections to pure white and increase the IOR value. Metals need a much higher value than other material types. If I use a value of 5, for instance, I'll get a quite polished look. Let's try 18. Much better. We could also use the color value to introduce a tint to our metal material. Next, we can play with the glossiness value. The default value of 1 will produce a polished-looking surface, while lowering this value will make it appear more rough. Finally, I'll plug the texture into the bump channel. This will make parts of our teapot appear higher than the rest, giving it a slight surface variation. Make sure to play around with the bump amount value and find the right one depending on your texture. Next, let's create our second metal material. There is another approach when creating a material called physically based rendering, or PBR for short. Both methods are correct and produce physically accurate results. To use the PBR workflow, we need to set our material to use the roughness model and decide if we're going to create a metallic or non-metallic material. I want our spoon to be a metal one, so I need to set the metalness value to 1. To change its color this time, I need to use the diffuse color value. I want to create a copper material, and you can find the exact values for that and much more detailed information about this workflow in our Understanding Metalness blog post over at chaos.com. The shininess of our material is now controlled by the roughness value, and having higher values here will produce a more matte-looking material. Lastly, I'll plug an interesting pattern texture into the bump channel. And make sure to lower its value. Again, you can refer to the Understanding Metalness webpage for more information. There, you can look through a detailed table containing exact values for most common metal materials, such as gold, silver, iron, and many others. Let's see how easy we can create a plastic material for our sugar bowl. Let me create a new node material and assign it. All we need to do is find the color we like for the diffuse and focus on the reflections. Plastics are usually quite shiny, so we can make them fully visible and decide on how glossy we would like them to be. Having a bit of roughness in most cases is a good idea. For a more complex plastic shader, we'll want to focus also on how light interacts with its whole volume. This is part of the subsurface scattering setup, or SSS for short, located here under the translucency section in the refraction layer. You could also use an entirely different material called Fast SS2. However, SSS is out of the scope for this video since we are focusing on a simple setup. Next, let's create a material for our napkin. There are tons of excellent pre-made materials we can use from Chaos Cosmos. To use one, we simply need to load the browser and select one from the hundreds of available materials. I can browse through them easier by selecting a category. For instance, the fabric category. There are still quite a lot of materials to choose from, and we can continue narrowing them down by typing a specific one we are after in the search field, or using one of the available filters on the right side. Let's say I would like to have this fabric one for the napkin. All I need to do is click on the green import button and it'll show up in my material manager. We can also click on the drop-down arrow to show the import options. Here we can toggle the triplanar mapping option in case our model doesn't have a UV map. Let's import it without the triplanar options, since I know we've got a UV map. Once imported, we can continue adjusting our material, either as a classic material or convert it with a single click to a node material. Let's do that since all of our materials were node materials so far. Go to the V-Ray menu, and from the Tools menu, choose the Convert Materials option. A small standalone window pops up, and we've got a few useful options. Most importantly, we need to choose if we're going to convert all the materials in our scene or just the selected ones. I want to convert just the newly imported Cosmos material, so I'll leave it to the default selected materials. Next, we can choose to delete the original one and to automatically assign the converted one to the mesh. Now I can simply click on Convert. You can see that we've got all the node automatically created and connected for us. And now we can continue tweaking the shader. Now that we've covered the basics of creating and tweaking all sorts of materials, let's jump back to the glass material and add some final touches. We simply need to add the yellow ornaments to the main part of the glass and the edge. For this, we need a way to combine two materials into a single output node. To do this, we can use the Blend node. Just click on the plus button on the top left corner of the node editor and type in Blend. After we add that node, we need to specify which material will be the base one and which one will go into the material slot. Take a copy of our plastic shader and paste it into this node graph. I'm going to select a yellow shade and connect it to the coat material slot. You can see that it looks like it replaced our glass material. The only thing left is to make the two materials blend together the way we want them to. Since we can only see the coat one now, we could use the opacity slider, but that will lessen the effect of the coat material equally all over. So let's use a texture instead, and simply connect it to the blend amount. Okay, with this, you should now have a solid understanding of the V-Ray materials in Cinema 4D, how you can use the node system, and customize Chaos Cosmos materials. I hope you found this video helpful, and I highly recommend checking out the other Getting Started videos in this series.